When I first met Daniel, I believed he was the kind of man who would protect me from everything, including my own demons. I was 26, fresh out of a long, painful breakup, and he was 31, charming, secure, and already established in his career. A nurse with a chaotic schedule like mine didn't usually have time for dating, but Daniel made it easy. He was attentive, patient, affectionate. Everything my ex wasn't. We moved fast, maybe too fast. Within 7 months, we were living together. Within a year, we were married. I felt like I had found the partner I'd been praying for. The cracks didn't show until 2 years into our marriage. And even then, they were hairline fractures at first. A few missed date nights here. A couple of snarky remarks there. Little things, easy to brush off when you're still high on the idea of forever. But forever doesn't come crashing down overnight. It unravels. 2 months before my scheduled surgery, a relatively serious one to remove ovarian cysts that had caused chronic pain for years, Daniel had become distant. He blamed it on work stress. Deadlines, he said. New management. Just tired. I believed him. I had to. The alternative, that the man I built my life with was pulling away right when I needed him the most, was too terrifying to consider. The day of my surgery, I lay on that hospital bed with an 4 in my arm and fear buzzing in my chest. Daniel had promised he'd be there. He said he'd pick me up the moment I was discharged. Of course I'll be there, baby. What kind of husband would I be if I wasn't? What kind indeed? The answer came 6 hours later when I woke up groggy, in pain and alone. I called Daniel's phone, no answer. I texted. Nothing. The nurse said, "Sweetheart, someone else signed you out." Confused, I sat up slowly, forcing myself to push through the pain. Who? The nurse blinked. A woman. Tall, dark hair. Said she was your sister. I don't have a sister. I checked my phone again. One new text. From an unknown number. You don't know me, but I'm with Daniel now. He said you'd understand. He asked me to pick you up so he wouldn't have to see you cry. My stomach turned. Not from the anesthesia. Not from the pain. From the betrayal. I never responded to her text. I never called Daniel again. But that was the moment I knew my husband had not only left me. He had replaced me. And I wasn't going to take it lying down. I didn't cry that night. Not like I thought I would. I think the painkillers numbed more than just my body. I sat on the edge of the hospital bed, fingers wrapped around my phone, staring at the message again and again. He asked me to pick you up so he wouldn't have to see you cry. What kind of person does that to someone they claim to love? I signed myself out of the hospital and called a rideshare to take me home. It was humiliating. I had gauze across my abdomen, a prescription for painkillers I hadn't filled yet, and a hole in my chest so deep it physically ached. When I walked into our apartment, his keys were gone from the dish by the door. His half of the closet? Empty. Even the damn toothbrush holder was missing his side. No note. No explanation. Just absence. And then I saw it, an envelope on the kitchen counter. My name scribbled across the front in his rushed handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers, hoping for an apology. Instead, I got a checklist. Literally. He wrote bullet points. Didn't want to make a scene. We've grown apart. Met someone who makes me feel alive again. Hope you understand. Hope I understand? After abandoning me at the hospital and sending his new girlfriend to retrieve me like a lost parcel? It was psychotic. And it was personal now. The next day, I began my plan. But I didn't go nuclear right away. That would have been too easy. No. First, I needed to know who she was. The number she texted from led me straight to her Instagram. Of course it did. Her entire profile was public. Her name was Crystal. She had an aesthetic page full of filters, latte art, and quotes like "good vibes only." Ironic. From her feed, I learned she was 23, worked in marketing, and loved posting couple selfies, which is how I found a picture of her with Daniel, dated a full month before my surgery. He was in a hoodie I'd bought him for Christmas. They were smiling. Cozy. My husband. The caption? Felt like I waited forever to find this kind of love. 2 hearts. I screenshotted everything. I spent the next week quietly gathering more. Every receipt I could find. His bank statements. Emails. Photos. Even their public LinkedIn profiles, just in case. I had no grand plan yet, just rage. Focused, clean burning rage. But then something unexpected happened. A woman named Lexi messaged me on Instagram. I don't know if this is weird, but I used to date Daniel. I saw your name tagged in an old post and figured I'd reach out. Just wanted to say I know what you're going through. He did something similar to me. Similar? Lexi and I ended up talking for hours. Turns out Daniel has a pattern. He love bombs. Moves in quickly. Then vanishes, often with someone younger and more exciting. And he always makes sure the break is clean, no closure. Just silence. But this time he picked the wrong woman to ghost. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight for him. I was going to destroy the illusion he'd built around himself. And I'd start with the one thing he cared about more than anything, his reputation. Daniel always prided himself on being the reliable guy. He'd spent years curating that image, at work, with his friends, even online. His co-workers thought he was the golden boy of the team. His old college buddies believed he was the sweet, committed husband who always treated his woman like a queen. And Crystal? From what I could tell, she thought she'd hit the jackpot. Older guy, stable job, emotionally available. I used to think the same. So I started slow. I didn't want a meltdown, I wanted a collapse. The kind that comes gradually. I wanted every fake layer of his new life to peel back until Crystal saw exactly who she was with. Until everyone he'd fooled realized the truth. I began with anonymous emails. I created a burner account and sent a tip to his HR department. I didn't accuse him of anything, not directly. Just a gentle nudge. You might want to check into Daniel Blake's workplace behavior. He's been using company time and resources to conduct a relationship with a subordinate. There's footage. I didn't even know if Crystal was a subordinate. But I knew they both worked for the same company. That was enough. 2 days later, Daniel's company launched an internal review. Lexi and I kept in touch. She helped me dig deeper. Turns out she still had an old Gmail password of his from years ago. He had reused it for multiple logins. We cracked into one of his old cloud drives. What we found made my blood boil. Photos. Dozens of them. Him with Crystal. Him with other girls. Him with one girl that looked barely 20, time-stamped from the same month he and I went on our honeymoon. Lexi didn't cry. She just sent me a one-line message. Ready when you are. Together we drafted a letter, printed, signed, and mailed copies to his boss, Crystal's supervisor, his parents, and Crystal herself. Each one detailed how he had lied, cheated, and manipulated multiple women, often while involved with others. But that wasn't all. I mailed Crystal a flash drive. No sender name. Just a sticky note inside, if you want to know who you're really dating. On the drive, screenshots, photo timestamps, copies of love letters he'd sent Lexi and me with nearly identical wording, and a video clip of him from an old voice memo, drunkenly bragging about how women are like job applications. You send out enough, one's bound to say yes. It took her 3 days to post a breakup reel. She deleted every photo of him, unfollowed him, blocked him. Her story that night said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." But Daniel? Daniel still didn't know where the storm was coming from. And I wasn't finished yet. When Daniel finally reached out, it wasn't out of guilt. It was out of desperation. 3 weeks after Crystal dumped him and his workplace launched an ethics inquiry, I got a message from him on an old email I hadn't used since grad school. The subject line? "I miss you." I opened it. He said he was confused. That he'd made a mistake. That things with Crystal weren't what he thought they'd be. That I was the only one who really got him. He said he missed my laugh. My lasagna. My Sunday morning playlists. My stability. It wasn't an apology. It was a rescue flare. He was drowning and suddenly the woman he left in a hospital bed was supposed to be his lifeboat. I didn't respond. But I did forward that email to Crystal, just in case she had any lingering doubts about who he really was. The next day, I saw that Daniel had posted a selfie on Facebook. He was at a cafe looking worn down, eyes puffy, captioned, "Healing isn't linear. Doing my best to be better." One comment from an old mutual friend read, "Proud of you, bro." I laughed. Because he wasn't healing. He was hiding. The same day, I got a message from a girl named Jess. Another ex. She had found my name through Crystal, who apparently shared the flash drive with a few friends before deleting it all. Jess sent me voice notes, raw, angry, tearful voice notes, about how Daniel had ghosted her, love-bombed her, lied to her family. I told her she wasn't alone. That night, the three of us, me, Lexi, and Jess, jumped on a group call. We didn't plot revenge. Not exactly. We shared stories. We cried. We laughed. We made a private group chat called The Escapees. That call reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor. And maybe for the first time, I wasn't surviving in spite of what he did. I was thriving because of what I did next. I didn't block Daniel right away. No, that would have been too easy. I let his messages sit there. Read. Unanswered. The little seen check marks haunting him. I knew how much he hated silence. He thrived on attention, on reactions. Even anger was fuel for him. But indifference? That was poison. He sent 5 more emails over the next 2 weeks. Each one more desperate than the last. Can we please talk? I know I messed up. You're the only person who ever made me feel at home. I don't know who I am without you. Please, just respond. I never did. Meanwhile, Crystal's breakup story started making rounds on TikTok. Someone from her friend's circle posted a stitched reaction with the caption, "When your man lies to you and his wife." The comments section turned into a wildfire. Girls from different cities started coming forward with eerily similar stories. Love bombing. Quick escalations. Disappearing. Another girl posted a screenshot of the same voice memo Lexi and I had found, the job application quote. It went viral. Daniel's face, blurred but recognizable, became the symbol of a walking red flag. Then came the real fallout. His HR department finished their investigation. He wasn't fired, but he was moved. Demoted. Transferred to a satellite office an hour away. He posted a long, cryptic Instagram story soon after. When your name gets dragged through the mud, sometimes all you can do is let the storm pass. No mention of what caused the storm. He still didn't know. Or maybe he did, but knowing it came from the women he underestimated only made it worse. That month I got a bonus at work. I booked a solo trip to Italy. Took photos. Laughed with strangers. Ate carbs without guilt. I posted one picture, standing on a balcony in Florence, wine in hand, sun on my skin, with the caption, "Turns out I'm doing just fine." I knew he saw it. He reacted with a heart emoji. I deleted the notification. I didn't need his validation. Not anymore. By the time spring rolled around, Daniel had faded into the background noise of my life, like a radio station I no longer tuned into. The emails stopped. The fake inspirational posts slowed. His name stopped showing up in my DMs, but only because I'd finally blocked him everywhere. I didn't need to watch him spiral anymore. Because something better had happened. I had rebuilt. My apartment, once a shared space full of his clutter and shadows, had become my sanctuary. I repainted the walls. Changed the furniture. Burned every candle he hated. I even got a cat, something he forbade when we were together because he claimed he was allergic. Turns out he wasn't. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I was broken, but because I was ready to understand why I let myself believe someone like Daniel deserved me. We dug deep. We uncovered patterns. Childhood wounds. My obsession with being chosen by someone instead of choosing myself. Every week, I walked out of that office feeling lighter. Stronger. In June, I got promoted. My team threw me a surprise lunch with cupcakes and music, and for the first time in a year, I laughed so hard I cried. The good kind of crying. The release kind. That night, I went home, opened a bottle of wine, and sat down at my laptop. I opened a blank document and titled it, How to Spot a Daniel, a Survival Guide. It was meant to be a joke. But it turned into a blog post. Then a series. Then a newsletter. Women started messaging me. Strangers. Co-workers. A few even said, "I think I dated a Daniel too." It grew. I wasn't just healing. I was helping others do the same. And somewhere I imagined Daniel sitting alone, watching the world he once ruled slip away, all because the women he underestimated realized they weren't disposable. They were powerful. He used to say I was too emotional. Now I use those emotions to build something real. Something lasting. Something honest. It was early August when I got the DM. The profile picture was unfamiliar, a blonde girl smiling with her head tilted slightly like she was trying to convince the world she was happy. I almost ignored it. But something made me click. Her message? "Hi. I'm really sorry to bother you, but I think we need to talk. It's about Daniel." My chest tightened. Not from fear. From curiosity. I replied. Her name was Taylor. She'd met Daniel at a networking mixer a few months prior. They had a brief fling that turned into something more, or so she thought. It ended the week before she messaged me, when he suddenly ghosted her after she asked if they were exclusive. She found his name in an old Reddit thread, one of the viral ones linked to Crystal's TikTok, and followed the trail back to me. She wanted to know if the stories were true. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I sent her screenshots. Explained how he had lied, manipulated, and discarded people. I told her how he left me after surgery, used women like stepping stones, and only came crawling back when it all fell apart. She was quiet for a moment. Then she sent. "He told me you were the crazy one. That you stalked him. That you made everything up." I didn't get angry. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just replied, "That's what he always says." Taylor and I ended up on a call. She cried. Not because she loved him, but because she felt stupid for falling for the act. I told her she wasn't stupid. Predators are just really good at playing prey. Before we hung up, she thanked me. And then she said something I'll never forget. "You're the reason I won't go back. Thank you for saving me." That night I stood on my balcony, wine glass in hand, city lights glowing below me, and I realized. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was legacy. Daniel thought he could erase me. Instead, I became the story that would haunt him in every new relationship, the one woman who not only walked away but lit the path for others to follow. By the time September rolled around, Daniel had vanished from every mutual connection's social media. His old pages were either wiped clean or made private. Even the filtered selfies and gym progress shots were gone. But I knew him. I knew what that meant. He wasn't healing. He was rebranding. And sure enough, a week later, a new Instagram popped up at New Mindset Dan. I laughed when I saw it. Same forced smile. Same motivational captions. Starting over is hard. But sometimes it's the best thing that can happen to you. You can't grow while clinging to your old self. Be the person your future self will thank you for. It was like watching a fraud trying to sell self-help to the very people he'd destroyed. But what caught my attention most wasn't his cheesy captions, it was his new following. Women. Dozens of them. Some commenting supportively. Others demaying him. A few even reposting his transformation story like he was some kind of phoenix rising from the ashes. And just like that, I felt the fire in my chest again. Not because I wanted him back. Not even because I was hurt. But because he was about to start the cycle again, with a new crop of women who didn't know what he was capable of. So I contacted Crystal, Jess, Lexi, Taylor. We shared the account. We flagged posts. We stitched receipts. We reshared Crystal's original TikTok. We created a new profile. At Escaped from Dan. And we told the real story. Every lie. Every name. Every timeline. We didn't attack, we informed. We let screenshots speak for themselves. And the comments rolled in fast. "You saved me from falling for him. OMG, he just DM'd me last week. This guy was at my friend's party, told her he was a relationship coach. That part made me choke on my coffee. Relationship coach? Daniel couldn't commit to a Netflix show without cheating on the genre. By the end of the month, at New Mindset Dan was deleted. At Escaped from Dan? Still growing. But the best part wasn't the downfall. It was the messages. From women who were warned in time. From girls who said, I felt like I was going crazy until I saw your page. We hadn't just stopped him. We built a lighthouse for every woman he'd try to gaslight next. I found the engagement ring at the bottom of a drawer I hadn't opened in months. It was still in its box. Still shining. A symbol of everything Daniel pretended to be. Of everything I almost believed. For a moment I just held it. Let it sit heavy in my hand. It wasn't sadness I felt. Not regret. Just disbelief. Disbelief that I almost married someone who could look me in the eyes and plan a future, all while planting landmines behind my back. Some people flush their rings. Some throw them in lakes. Others sell them. I didn't want to waste the story. So I took it to a pawn shop. I got $500, not much for the lies it represented, but enough for what I needed. I booked a weekend trip to the coast. Took my laptop. Rented a little Airbnb by the water. And I started writing. Not a blog post. Not a newsletter. A book. The working title? Ghosted After Surgery, a love story that wasn't. I poured it all out. The betrayal. The patterns. The healing. The revenge. And the sisterhood that came out of it. Lexi read the first chapter. She cried. Taylor offered to write a foreword. Jess sent me voice notes telling me to make him infamous. Even Crystal, once the other woman, said, let me know if you want the screenshots again. I saved everything. It stopped being about him. It started being about us. The women he used. The women he underestimated. The women he made stronger by trying to break them. And somewhere in the quiet hum of that beach town I realized. This wasn't just closure. It was a beginning. Because every time a woman picks up that book, every time she reads about the girl left alone in a hospital bed while her fiancé ran off to chase validation, she'll remember something crucial. She's not crazy. She's not alone. And she's not the one who should be ashamed. The book was published quietly. No big announcements. No flashy promos. Just a link shared in our little survivor group, a quiet release into the world, and a promise to ourselves that we'd never let someone like him rewrite our stories again. But the world had other plans. Because women know. Women feel truth when they read it. And they pass it on like fire through dry grass. By winter, Ghosted After Surgery had gone viral on TikTok. Not because of marketing, but because readers kept posting their favorite quotes. He left me while I was healing. But I healed anyway. She wasn't the reason he left. She was just the excuse. You can survive anything once you stop making room for people who would rather watch you bleed. Thousands of shares. Thousands of comments. Thousands of women saying, this is my story too. I got emails, DMs, podcast invites. And then a message from Daniel's new girlfriend. She didn't know the full truth. Until she read my book. She didn't send hate. She sent thanks. Said she left him 2 weeks after finishing the final chapter. Said he cried. Screamed. Threw the book across the room when she confronted him. Called me a liar. Accused her of betrayal. Then, finally, she said. But I looked him in the eye and said, you left her at the hospital. You don't get to be the victim anymore. It was over for him. Really over. No more resets. No more rebrands. Just the truth. Following him everywhere he went. And me? I moved again. Not because I was running, but because I could. A new city. A new apartment. A new last name. I started dating again. Carefully. On my terms. One night, while watching the sunset from my new balcony, I smiled to myself and whispered, he'll never know peace again. And that was enough. Because I didn't need revenge anymore. I had peace. I had power. And I had my story, told on my terms, in my voice, for every woman who ever needed to hear. You don't have to burn yourself to light someone else's fire. He left me broken. But I rebuilt in silence. And when I was done, he couldn't look away from the flames.